We don't really have mathematics, so this is a room full of data scientists, which should be quite interesting. Okay. So, 2013, we have what I call a big data dichotomy. And it is the challenge of getting this thing moving in an economy where justification can fall at the first hurdle. So in essence, Capgemini did basically an audit of 600 people just at the beginning of this year. And it had 43% CXO participation. And the dichotomy that arose from this survey was that C-level belief is that we are data-driven as an economy, as organisations. But the reality is the operational processes that sit behind this intent don't really stack up. So unstructured data is incredibly difficult. We've heard a lot about the 3 Vs today, and I can test that actually it's the 4 Vs. The 4 Vs being the new data scientist or superhero in this case. Volume and velocity are rapidly becoming a commodity, with variety the current challenge, and actually delivering value from big data, bottom line value becoming really the holy grail of this particular discipline. So we have a data skills shortage. We have an environment where tactical deployments of data overwhelm strategic deployments. So it's a challenge for everybody in the room, I'm sure. So in the poll of 600 business leaders, 62% dispute that all possible decisions could have been automated. We have not automated the automatable. Why do you think that may be? Well, we just said that value is the common driver now. What we call in the big data continuum the action analysis phase of big data, i.e. the insight that comes from marshalling, acquiring and marshalling all of the information at our disposal. So with this situation where value is really the driver, and with a climate where 41% of our CXOs expect performance improvements over the next 3 years, we're in a bit of a pickle. One of the key points here on this particular slide to raise is around the rising importance of business activity data. That is, capturing events as they happen. And a few of the sessions today have raised this sentiment. The reality to do that within the context of a process outcome, or to do that within the context of a business outcome, is incredibly difficult. So what we're finding is, although we have the technology at our disposal, and a tipping point in terms of that technology, actually the ability to make the intelligence that we generate relevant, actionable, and value-driven is the challenge for the next decade. So in essence, we are looking at harnessing this CXO desire to be data-driven, but we need to make everything that we do relevant to the C-level pain points in our organisation. With a 26% performance improvement expected from deployment, strategic deployment of big data, we need to focus on time-critical concerns. We need to operationally walk in the shoes of the processes that we are trying to improve. And we need to keep calm, and we need to upskill our organisations to deal with the increasing deluge of unstructured data. CTO at Kaggle, Chris Hammond, has repeatedly said it's about telling stories rather than living the data through spreadsheets. As data scientists, we have an inclination to force people into a cognitive focus, where they have to be very data aware. But I think the realm of big data going forward, to bring it to the boardroom agenda, is to tell the story through the outcome. So how do we overcome these key big data roadblocks in terms of getting a big data startup going within our organisations? Within our organisations today, the CXO perspective of data continues to be siloed and internal and relatively structured in nature. Everyone has a perception of what the information needs to be for them, and they seldomly realise that all of this information from each of the CXO roles is inextricably linked. This manifests itself as a propagation of structured interfaces. Interfaces which are actually really what we're drowning in now in terms of data terms. Structured interfaces reduce our agility and mean that whenever we need to change our business model to react to the economy, we have to do that in a multitude of places. The average Tier 1 organisation has 5,000 to 6,000 interfaces at its disposal, with an average cost of £10,000 to build an interface and £6,000 per annum to maintain that interface. The tactical quick wins of building these interfaces, because it's a cheaper alternative, are fast becoming obsolete. So the business case for big data needs to focus on three perspectives, and it needs to be driven by revenue, cost, and risk perspectives. In the Capping It Off blog, I've built 3 blogs which basically dictate how a business case can be built quickly. We need to start one customer at a time. On the far corner, we have the interfaces between the realm of the COO, what are we building, the CMO, who's buying, and the CFO, how much. Just one example. Stay out of the grey and aim for the bullseye when you start your big data initiative. The orange areas are points of frequent interaction where big data is useful. The red area is a point of interaction where big data is crucial. Start in the centre. I mentioned about the interfaces and the cost of interfaces, and I've titled that Big Trouble Little Interfaces after the horrendous Kurt Russell film, I'm sure you will see. The increasing complexity of these interfaces and the increasing number is driving enormous amounts of money into the operating costs of organisations. On average, a company duplicates the same information 7 times. When you need to change that to react to the market, you're in a pickle again, as I've mentioned. Finally, mind the gap. When we look at what Donald Rumsfeld terms the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns, there's an opportunity there to focus our big data initiatives. And in this case here, whether it's from a compliance perspective, or whether it's from a regulatory perspective, or in this case, what we're good at building or what the market needs, I've mentioned we should focus on the bullseyes in terms of big data. We should also focus on the gaps. We're really good at providing certain products, but is that what the market actually needs going forward? So this is very much about focusing on the known unknowns and then gradually moving to the unknown unknowns to get value from big data. So how do you pick your ideal data sponsor? Well, the reality is, this is really difficult. This is an equation taken from Geek Logic, which actually was intended to work out whether your marriage would last, so I think this is probably an easier challenge to deal with. And as I said, my mathematics is a little bit questionable, so I'm sure somebody will prove me wrong with this. But if you look at how many years you and your sponsor have actually worked together, how passionate this sponsor is about data activities, how often you have conflicts or debates about that information, and the average number of disagreements you may have, and you roll that through this calculation, you end up with what's called a big data sponsor acceptance factor. Any value of 1 or more is really great. So I think try that, run that through, but in all seriousness, impact is the way to pick your first sponsor. They need to be the initial beneficiary of the big data activity that you're going through. They need to have a tolerance for mistakes. Big data by nature is a series of iterative mistake-ridden iterations. They need to have a passion for information and intelligence in this case. They need to be comfortable with ambiguity. They need to be prepared and be able to handle change. And they need to be a transitional investor. That suggests that we need to take big data initiatives outside our organisation to be successful, almost an entrepreneurial attempt at doing that. So, if we're going to focus on loyalty, agility, cost of service, we should start to apply what I think it probably has been mentioned today, outside-in thinking. We need to look at the market, the external indicators of the market, the business activity data, as well as looking inside out at the information that's within our structured stores. We need to focus on revenue, risk and cost specifically. If it's not attributable to one of those aspects, it's not worth doing, and it's therefore not going to get momentum in the economy. And focus on the fourth V of value. The other terminology we've used is really, it's not big data, it's right data in the current economy. It's about delivering the right information at key points of business interaction at the right time. And that involves handling a wider variety of data at a faster speed than ever before. We need to consider the right sponsor, and we need to aim for the interaction bullseye, the points at which we interact with our customers and across our lines of business the most. And of course, there have to be multiple beneficiaries. So the practice of tomorrow, today. We're moving from an era of data-centric siloed exercise. Lots of silos of information. And structured data is effectively what drives all of our solutions today. Big data is starting to change that, but big data and visualization are in their infancy. As data scientists, as data analysts, as data professionals, we are very data-centric in terms of the context, in terms of the way that we work. We build our solutions bottom up. We force a cognitive focus today, and we generally, most organisations I see, are working inside out in nature. They're looking at their structured stores of data, and they are trying to understand the market based on what happens internally rather than the sentiment occurring externally. Why? It's easier to build a structured solution than it is to build an unstructured solution. Acquisition and marshalling of data is becoming the commodity activity, and this is still taking 80% of our focus. So 80% of our focus today is wedded to the data. We're using a shield of mathematics to deliver pockets of insight, and this is not widespread yet. And I think the challenge is that by focusing on acquisition and marshalling data, we have a tendency to forget the most important part, which is the outcome in this situation. Big data is also extremely confusing, hence the term data scientist and the 4 V's and the superhero mentality. There is no other IT discipline where you can have a zookeeper with hives being chased by a pig with an Uzi whirring down the flume. It just defies all belief. So data science may be the foundation. By no means am I suggesting that its days are over, but it needs to be wedded with the outcome that you're looking at, the outcome of the big data solution. So we're moving towards an outcome-embedded nervous system. It's very different because much of the information at our disposal is not in our control. Maybe sentiment data, it could be device data, utility data. And we're trying to marry brand and sentiment information on massive scales, location information, with our own internal view. I'm sure many of you out there realise that without a single view of the customer, or without a consolidated view of your internal information, it's practically impossible to marry that with what's happening in the outside world. The old adage is true, you cannot measure what you cannot manage. So this is becoming an increasing problem for us. Process-centric outcomes are absolutely crucial. If we're delivering intelligence, we need to deliver it to the points of interaction where our customer service is improved as a result, our risk is reduced as a result, and new revenue opportunities as well as cost-reducing opportunities are tantamount. The increasingly important aspect of visualization, visual context, is also key. And I contest that actually data art is the next big paradigm in our science. And it's about delivering the business interactions, the intelligence, with focus on the outcome. This is effectively telling everything through a story. The story needs to be actionable. Those of you that have come across the Lean Startup books by Eric Ries realise that we need to work more with actionable metrics, metrics which affect the bottom line. So I think people that can deal with ambiguity, data artists is the next big thing. Whilst data science may be the transactions, data art is the Visa card. It gives us the intelligence, shows us how we're moving, and the Visa acronym is critically important. We're looking at basically the concept of visual, the responses that we generate, the intelligence that we generate need to be visual. In the form of, they need to be interpreted, sometimes in very ambiguous, that's the A of Visa situations, and we need to be storytellers rather than scientists. So looking at big data in 2013, it needs to become process-centric. We need to look at startup or entrepreneurial situations to deliver this data. Hothouse, outside your current funding processes and outside your current internal delivery models. It needs to be actionable and it needs to be customer experience positive. So the emergence of data art is a very different discipline, and really that is where I think the market is going. Finally, it's all about combining what you know with what the market thinks of you in terms of customer interactions. And this is becoming increasingly critical. So the 10 points I want you to remember today, if nothing else. The story is the end point. Your big data initiative should be through a story, live the story paragraph by paragraph through the data. Make it metrics driven, actionable metrics like clicks to conversions, not vanity metrics, as in website visitors. It needs to be delivered within the context of the process. That's the major challenge really going forward. It needs to be at business pace, delivered to the key points of interaction. It needs to be relevant to many, personalised. It also needs to be embedded in the process and needs to have a positive experience on the customer experience in this case. It needs to commoditise the data acquisition and marshalling processes. It needs to be outside in nature. It needs to be interface reducing, cutting costs of the back office. And most importantly, it needs to be based on the drivetrain concept made famous by Alta Vista and Google. So in a nutshell, the information management practice of tomorrow is about marrying inside out and outside in, and multiplying that by the data science foundation we're currently building, and adding this concept of data art to make it relevant, actionable, and delivered within the context of the process outcome that you're looking for. And that's it. Thank you very much.